Have you ever felt like your mind just won't stop? Like thoughts are piling up one on top of another. No rest, no silence, no peace. You try to sleep, but your brain keeps running. You try to focus, but 1,000 worries invade at the same time. You try to relax, but your anxiety won't let you. It's as if you're carrying the entire world inside your skull, and that weight is crushing you from the inside out. You're exhausted, but you can't stop. And the worst part is that nobody notices, because on the outside you look perfectly fine. This is the story of a man who had everything society considers success: a high-ranking position, a big salary, a large house, a brand new car. But inside, he was drowning. His mind was a constant storm of worries, demands, and fears. He could no longer sleep, he could no longer feel joy, and he could no longer be present, not even with his own family. Until one day, on the verge of a breakdown, he met an old tea master during a business trip. What happened that afternoon, in a silent room with just 2 cups, completely changed the way he understood his own mind. Stay with me until the end, because this story might be exactly what you need to hear right now. It doesn't matter how heavy your mind feels. It doesn't matter how many nights you've spent unable to turn off your thoughts. There is a way to find peace in the middle of the chaos. Not by running away from your problems or ignoring reality, but by learning to empty what doesn't need to be there. You might just discover that the biggest obstacle between you and the peace you're looking for isn't the world outside. It's what you're carrying in here. In a busy city in New York State lived a man named Daniel. At 43 years old, he was the CFO of a major tech company in Manhattan. His routine started at 5 in the morning and ended close to midnight. Meetings, reports, multi-million-dollar decisions. His phone never stopped vibrating. His inbox was never empty. His mind never rested. Daniel made more money in a month than his father had made in 5 years. But there was one thing all that money couldn't buy: a single night of peaceful sleep. Daniel couldn't remember the last time he had slept well. When he lay in bed, his mind would race. Thoughts about work, about decisions he needed to make, about mistakes he might have committed. And when he finally fell asleep, he would wake up 2 or 3 times during the night, heart pounding, as if he were late for something important. In the morning, he got up more tired than when he went to bed. He'd drink strong coffee, swallow an anxiety pill, and keep going. It had been this way for years. He didn't know any other way to live. His wife, Catherine, tried to help. She suggested vacations, therapy, meditation. Daniel always had an excuse. "I don't have time. I'll look into it later. Not right now." The truth was, he was afraid to stop, afraid that if he slowed down, everything would fall apart, that people would find out he wasn't as competent as he seemed, that he'd be replaced by someone younger, more eager, hungrier. So he kept running, even without knowing where he was going, even as he felt like he was leaving a piece of himself behind every single day. Daniel's children, 2 teenagers aged 15 and 13, barely saw him. By the time he got home, they were already asleep. On weekends, he stayed locked in his office answering emails. On the rare occasions he tried to be present, his mind was somewhere else. His body would sit on the couch with his family, but his thoughts remained at the office, on the numbers, on the problems. Once, his oldest son asked if he was okay. Daniel automatically said yes, but they both knew it was a lie. One Sunday in March, Daniel had a breakdown. He was in his home office, reviewing a presentation for Monday, when he felt his chest tighten. His heart raced, his hands started to shake, and it felt like he couldn't get any air into his lungs. He thought he was having a heart attack. Catherine rushed him to the hospital. After hours of tests, the doctor gave him the diagnosis. It wasn't his heart. It was a severe panic attack. His body was reacting to years of built-up stress. The doctor looked him in the eye and said seriously, "Sir, if you don't change your lifestyle next time, it might not just be panic." Daniel went home terrified. For the first time in years, he felt real fear. Not fear of losing his job or failing in business, fear of dying, fear of leaving his children fatherless and his wife a widow, fear that all that rushing around wouldn't mean anything in the end. He sat on his porch alone, looking at the dark sky, and realized he didn't know how to stop. His mind was still racing even then, in that moment. Thoughts crashing into each other, worries multiplying. It was like a machine without an off switch. The following week, the CEO called Daniel in for a talk. He thought he was going to be fired because of the hospital episode, but that wasn't it. The company was opening a branch in Japan and needed someone to spend 2 months there setting up the operation. It was an important mission, but also a chance to get away from the frantic pace of New York. The CEO looked at Daniel and said something unexpected. "I know you're at your breaking point. Everyone knows. Go to Japan, resolve what needs to be resolved there, and take the opportunity to resolve what needs to be resolved in here." He pointed to his own head. Daniel accepted without a second thought. He didn't know what he would find on the other side of the world, but he knew he couldn't go on the way he was. Daniel arrived in Tokyo on a rainy April afternoon. The city was a contrast of extremes. Glass skyscrapers standing next to centuries-old temples, rushing crowds crossing streets in absolute silence, cutting-edge technology coexisting with ancient traditions. He settled into a corporate apartment downtown and dove into work immediately. Meetings with Japanese partners, market analysis, structuring the new branch. During the first 2 weeks, his routine was identical to New York's. He woke up early, worked late, slept poorly, and repeated. The only difference was the time zone. But there was something about Japan that began to bother him in a strange way. The Japanese executives he worked with were efficient, but they didn't seem desperate. They took breaks during the day, had unhurried lunches, and left at 6 in the evening. No one stayed until midnight. No one replied to emails in the middle of the night. At first, Daniel thought they were less committed. Then he realized he was wrong. They delivered just as much as his team in New York, maybe more. And they did it without looking like they were constantly on the verge of a breakdown. On the 3rd weekend, one of the Japanese partners, a 60-year-old man named Takeshi, invited Daniel to visit Kyoto. He said it was important to understand Japanese culture to do business in the country. Daniel accepted out of politeness, thinking it would be a waste of time. They took the bullet train on Friday night and arrived in Kyoto in 2 hours. The city was completely different from Tokyo, calmer, older, quieter. Wooden temples, rock gardens, narrow streets where time seemed to move slower. On Saturday afternoon, Takeshi took Daniel to a small tea house hidden in an alley, far from the tourist spots. It was a simple place, almost invisible, with a wooden door and no sign. Inside, a man in his 70s received them with a silent bow. His name was Hiroshi, and he had been a master of the tea ceremony for over 40 years. Takeshi explained that Hiroshi had been his mentor for decades, and that this visit was a gift. Daniel didn't quite understand what kind of gift it was, but he said thank you and sat on the floor, uncomfortable, not knowing what to expect. Hiroshi began to prepare the tea in absolute silence. Every movement was slow, deliberate, and precise. He heated the water, cleaned the utensils, and measured the green tea powder with a bamboo spoon. Daniel watched restlessly, his mind already racing with the emails he needed to answer, the meetings for the following week, and the pending reports. He tried to discreetly pull his phone out of his pocket. Takeshi placed a hand over his and shook his head. "Not here," he whispered. "Just watch." Daniel put the phone away, irritated, but he obeyed. The ceremony lasted nearly an hour, an entire hour to prepare and serve 2 cups of tea. When Daniel finally took a sip, the tea was perfect. But it wasn't about the flavor. It was about something he couldn't quite name. When he finished, Hiroshi looked at him for the first time and said in slow, careful English, "Your cup is too full." Daniel didn't understand. "My cup is empty," he replied, showing him the vessel. Hiroshi smiled. "Not that cup, the cup of your mind. It is so full that nothing else fits. No peace, no clarity, no wisdom. Until you empty it, you will continue to suffer." Daniel fell silent. Those simple words hit him harder than anything had in years. Hiroshi continued, "You carry 1,000 thoughts that you do not need to carry. Worries about a past that is already gone. Fears about a future that doesn't exist yet. Your mind is so noisy that you can no longer hear anything else. Not your wife, not your children, not even your own body asking you to stop." He paused. "The tea I prepared took 1 hour. Were you able to stay in silence for 1 hour?" Daniel shook his head no. Hiroshi nodded. "That is your problem, and it is also your solution." Daniel returned to Tokyo that night, but Hiroshi's words wouldn't leave his head. "Your cup is too full." He spent the following week working as usual, but something had shifted. He began to notice how his mind was always somewhere else. While talking to a colleague, he was thinking about 3 other things. While eating lunch, he was planning the afternoon meeting. While trying to sleep, he was mentally reviewing everything he had done and everything he still needed to do. He was never present. He was never truly there. He was always in a place that didn't exist, the past or the future, never the now. The following weekend, Daniel did something he hadn't done in years. He woke up without an alarm, turned off his cell phone, and walked aimlessly through the streets of Tokyo. He had no destination, no goal, no to-do list. He just walked. At first, it was unbearable. His mind screamed that he was wasting time, that there were important things to do, that this was useless. But he kept walking, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And gradually, something strange happened. The internal noise began to fade. The thoughts still came, but they passed by, like clouds in the sky. He didn't need to hold on to them. Daniel went back to Kyoto the next weekend, and the one after that, and the one after that. Each time he sat with Hiroshi in silence, observing the tea ceremony, practicing the art of doing nothing. Hiroshi never gave sermons. He never explained complicated theories. He simply repeated the same words in different ways. "Emptying is not forgetting," he said once. "It is letting go. You can remember your problems without carrying them in your chest all the time." Another time he said, "Your mind is like a glass of muddy water. If you keep stirring it, it never clears. But if you stop and wait, the mud settles and the water becomes transparent. You need to stop stirring." Little by little, Daniel began to apply this to his routine. He woke up 15 minutes earlier just to sit in silence before the day began. No formal meditation, no complicated techniques. Just sitting, breathing, and letting thoughts pass without grabbing onto them. At first, 15 minutes felt like an eternity. After a few weeks, he started to miss it when he skipped a day. It was as if his mind needed that moment of silence to function properly, like a computer that needs to reboot to stop freezing up. The results began to show without him even realizing it. He slept better. He had more clarity in his decisions. He could listen to people without planning his response while they were still talking. His Japanese colleagues noticed the difference. Takeshi said he looked like a different person, calmer, more present, more efficient. And the strangest part, by working fewer hours, Daniel produced more, because he was no longer wasting energy carrying useless thoughts. His cup had space now, space to think clearly, to decide with wisdom, to simply exist without suffering. 2 months later, Daniel returned to New York. Catherine was waiting for him at the airport with the kids. When he hugged her, something was different. He was there, really there, not thinking about work, not planning the next day, just hugging his wife, smelling the scent of her hair, hearing his children breathing beside him. Catherine started to cry without knowing why. Later, she said she hadn't felt him present like that in years. Daniel understood in that moment that Hiroshi hadn't just taught him a technique. He'd given him back something he had lost a long time ago, the ability to be alive in the present moment. My friend, Daniel's story is the story of many of us. We live with our minds so full that there's no room left for anything else. We carry worries we don't need to carry, fears that haven't happened yet, guilt for things that have already passed. And that weight slowly crushes us, steals our sleep, pushes away the people we love, and prevents us from truly living. Emptying your mind isn't about running away from problems. It's about stopping carrying what doesn't need to be carried right now. It's letting the water clear so you can see the bottom. If this story touched you in some way, give this video a like right now. This simple gesture helps more people find this message when they need it most. Leave a comment sharing what you need to let go of, what is weighing down your cup. And if you know someone living with an overloaded mind, someone who can't seem to stop, share this video with them. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this every week. And remember, you don't need to carry the whole world in your head. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is empty it, let it go, and finally have the space to live.